One of the most profound things I've learned in my life is that it's actually not about my hair at all. I've spent a lifetime trying to cover up who I am. And as much as I love a good external transformation, and I do, I much more love a heart transformation. Join me as I share how I work to heal my heart, find happiness, and embrace our hair. Okay, welcome back to episode 12 of It's Not About Your Hair, where we talk all things hair, heart, and happiness. My goodness, I can't believe we're on episode 12. I'm so glad that you're here. If you weren't here for the last two episodes, my daughter Sophie, my middle daughter, joined me as we dove a little deeper into perspective, goals, visioning, opportunity, chasing after the path that lays before you. And I hope that you got as much out of that as I did. As a mom, that was probably one of the funnest experiences I've had. I love in-depth conversations. I love talking about what God is doing, and probably nothing quite as enjoyable as doing that with your kids. On this episode, because those previous episodes caused me to think, I thought I would dive into how I began the journey of healing and talk a little bit more about therapy and perhaps talking about the process of discovering myself and how I've done that through years of Bible study, therapy, and tons of books. I'm an avid reader, mostly self-help. It's just generally what I like. And I've been in some in-depth Bible study on transformation for the last 20 years. And I just think that as we transition through our lives, we have either, and we talked about this before, but a growth or a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is someone who says always, and is kind of stuck in a pattern of thinking for a long period of time. A growth mindset allows for you to change and also for others to change, which is just really a powerful thing. And for a lot of years, I didn't think I could change. And as I have evolved, I've just learned so much about myself and so much about others. On this episode, I thought it would be really important to talk about, I touched briefly on the enneagram, and I have really loved the enneagram. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about it. I've talked to a few Christians about it. I think it's a weird anti-Christian thing. I want to tell you this little thing about studies. So I have worked with a life coach, a therapist, someone who worked with numbers that was referred to me by someone that one was a little bit kooky, but it was still awesome. And I learned something, because if you're open to learning, you can learn something in every situation. I believe that. Okay. I do have a strong desire to understand myself at a deeper level, but I want to tell you something that happened to my daughter in college, because I love this, and it helps me to think about the human race as we're all not that different. We're all searching to be seen, to be loved, and to be welcomed in. That is the truth. At the end of the day, every single human being wants that. Okay. So my oldest daughter is a therapist, licensed master degree social worker. I brag about her a lot because it's fun. All my kids are braggable, and all of your kids are braggable. And if you don't have kids, you were at one time a kid and you were worthy of bragging about. So this is your brag. You're awesome. But Sidney took a bunch of psychology classes and in-depth studies, and the whole year they were doing, and I'm probably fudging this up. She calls me 20%, which she says I tell the truth. Of the story is 20% and the 80% embellished, which I don't think it's accurate. Maybe the other way. Maybe it's the other way. Anyways, I wasn't in her class. I'm going to tell you what I heard her tell me. So she took this class, and the professor had to do all of these. They did do the enneagram test. They did a bunch of different things. And at the end of the year, the professor had them all come in, and there was a paper face down on their desk. And he said, I don't want anyone to turn that paper. He said, what I have wrote on there is what I have discovered about you individually through the year of you being in this class. And in just a moment, I want you to turn that paper over, and I want you to read it. And as you read it, I want you to think, have I caught the essence of who you are? Do I know you? And do you feel like I have gotten to know you and that I see you. And so I'm sure he said a few other things, and then they turned their papers over and they read them. And Sidney said she looked around and everybody was crying. Wasn't a dry eye in the room. Everybody, he said, all right, by a show of hands, I want to see if you think that I know who you are. Raise your hand. If you feel like I recognized you as a person, and every single person raised their hand. How could it be that this one professor got to know all these students? And after they all felt touched and overwhelmed and seen, he said, I wrote the same thing on all of your papers. I found that so fascinating because I've taken all of these personality tests, and every time I'm like, oh yeah, that's me, and that's me, and that's me, because I think we all want to fit something that resonates and like, yes, I can be known, or I can be this. So be very cautious as you navigate these areas of self-discovery, that you don't pigeonhole yourself and that you know you can change. Okay. And so I believe that all of these have nuggets of self-awareness, but they are not who you are, because you are created and you are individual and there's just no one like you. So for a year, I took a Strength Finder class in leadership when I owned my big salon, and it helped me a lot. And I learned 5 things about myself from that class. It's your top 35 strengths or 32. And mine were communication, woo, responsibility, belief, and I can't remember the other one, communication. And it was really helpful to me to see what my strengths were, because then I could work on building those. And from that really helped me to understand why I am the way I am, right? And then we took a spiritual gifting test and I learned all kinds of stuff. And guess what? Evangelism's at the top of my spiritual gifting. Well, no duh, since communication is my biggest strength in the rest of the world, okay? And then I took the enneagram. And the enneagram, what I love so much about it, and there's a Christian lady who does it called the My Enneagram Coach. Her and her husband are both pastors. I am obsessed with it. But it's a deeper dive inside the why we become who we are, instead of all of the external things. And so I'm an Enneagram 3, and learning all of these different parts about me helped me to just understand myself better. But once I did that, I wanted everyone in my family to do it. So I had my kids take all these tests, and I had my husband take it. And really, as Sophie talked about last week, she's hoping on her journey through life that she learns to listen to others better. She learns to understand others better, and she seeks to understand herself better, because it's only through that do we really take an authentic look at other people and genuinely find what's significant about them. And so if we all are like, oh, I'm an Enneagram 3 too, and then that's all we ever want to be, we're going to miss out on the transformation, because there's a whole nother element that says I can be. So an unhealthy 3 on the Enneagram, or if you're not a believer, the Enneagram is the achiever. The Enneagram 3, it's the achiever. It is likely to be the spokesperson for your company. It's someone who likes to act or be out in front of people. Usually their strongest giftings are public speaking. Ha ha ha, I have a podcast. In a lot of times Enneagram 3s on the surface look really successful. They're put together. They have all these things. But the core of an Enneagram 3 is severe and intense insecurity. And when I read that, I was like, this isn't me. And that was years ago. I was so mad. I'm like, that's not desiring to become all these things to appear a certain way because you didn't have it younger. A lot of times Enneagram 3s can accomplish a lot because they don't feel a lot. Ugh, I hated that when I read that. And I didn't want that to be me, because I prided myself on all of the self-help work I had done to make myself better. But at the core of who I was it still true? Was I striving for success because I was chasing after what God was giving me, or was I chasing after other people's approval of me? And I still teeter that line really, really close, you guys. I'm like a figure skater, and I do a figure 8 all around that gal dang dance, because there are times that I know I'm doing exactly what God's called me to do. And then if you follow me at social media at all, this year has been bananas, or last year since we're in 2024. I've been on social media forever as Voss the Curl Boss. I am a curly hair specialist. I talk about curly hair and the transformation of self-acceptance and the ability to see beautiful things. And I share all these videos of my clients. And in November, I had a post go viral, which means that 2 million people saw it. And then I had another post go viral and 2 million more people saw it. And I don't really know what that means other than I gained a whole lot of followers. And when you gain a whole lot of followers, I had been really, really lucky that most of the people that followed me were there because they wanted to be. And so they all said really nice stuff to me and my clients. And I really like that. And then when you start going viral, and I don't really know what this means, I'm just using these words that the internet tells me. You start showing up in people's For You. And that's what my kids told me. So I don't really follow that many people because I don't like to get caught up in the scroll, and it happens anyways. But once you start showing up in the For You, just random people see you, not people looking for you. And then random people get to say mean things about you. And I don't have thick enough skin for that nonsense because I really just want to be nice most of the time. And I don't want to have a good day, honey. Goodbye. You're going to hear a door open or close. I don't want to I don't like that. And more than just about me, like, so fine, you want to be a hater and say mean things to me on the internet and make a post about me chewing gum during my client appointment. I can handle that. But I never want to put my clients who don't have the healing or the call that I have to be subjected to people saying unkind things to them. And I was so sensitive to that all of a sudden because here's what I know. I've done a lot of work to understand myself. So if you want to throw hate at me, I'm still going to struggle because I'm weaving that line of God says and I said, but I never want to put my clients out there and have somebody say her hair looks bad or you shouldn't have done that or something like that. And I very rarely get that. But when it does happen, that's why when we talked last episode about the arena and the spectators is most people won't even get in the arena because nobody wants someone to say mean things about them. And here's the truth. Like a perfect stranger. Why does a perfect stranger who does not know me hurt my feelings? Because apparently I don't have enough inside that I can allow that off. And so I've gotten much better at deflecting that stuff. And I'm back. I'm back on the dang internet because you can't take me out. And I was going through a really hard time when I got off the internet because I thought, well, maybe God hadn't called me to this. So you see how sneaky that little trick is? And it's not that God's called me to TikTok or God's called me to Instagram, but God has given me a voice. And I'm so thankful that I get to use it. And 100 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to use it like this. I wouldn't have had a podcast or been able to do this. I probably would have been a traveling salesman who went around and sold stuff at your door and talked your ear off and you invited me in for dinner. And what a fun world that would be to have face-to-face connection. Still to this day, you guys, my favorite and where I hope this podcast leads me is to women's events where we get to meet each other, where we sit in a room together and our energy and our hearts connect. I really hope for that because I think that's where magic happens. But I've had so many of you reach out to me because of my social media and say, I needed to hear that today. My podcast is like literally, I think I get, because it's different. It's different. And I have zero expectation of this podcast, but I'll get 2 million views on a hair transformation and about 300 views on a podcast clip. But I am trusting that the 300 people that see this need to see it and that what you're struggling with, you recognize that you're not alone. And I think the reason that external transformations seem to come off so much better is because it's really hard to get in your feelings. And I understand that. And most of us aren't ready or we're not able to go back yet. And so the feeling stuff is hard. And we also have really goddamn weird attention spans that only last us about 3.5 minutes before we want to move on. So half the mean comments on all of my videos, I don't know how to edit. So I don't edit. Okay. I just post the before conversation with a client And I share that because I think it helps somebody who doesn't have a curly hair specialist at home, somebody who's maybe not far enough along in their curl journey that they understand their hair, someone who just wants to know how they should talk to their hairdresser. So I share that. But there's a few of you just gal dang meanies who are like, why is this chick still talking? I wish she would shut up. Where's the after? Blah, blah, blah. Like, why do you even have to say that? It's so rude. I try to avoid it. And then you have to come back the next day for the after. And then we share the whole thing, like how we break the cast and how we pop the top and how we touch the hair, because I believe that life is a journey. And I don't believe there are 30-second answers. I believe that it is your entire life that takes you through your entire life, that it's not one destination. So it's not you're born and then you wait till you die. It's you're born and then you learn to walk. Oh, sorry. You're born and you learn to eat, and then you learn to crawl, and then you learn to walk, and then you learn to run, and then you add in these other things. And that's much like our life on the planet, is we are traveling through time to get to our next level. And if we are wanting to heal, we will recognize that we get to transform through these processes of life. And if we're doing it well, we will have an opportunity to infect other people. And if you're doing it excellent, you'll take a look at your heart and decide that you want more. You want more for yourself, you want more for your family, and you want to be better. And we can change. We can. And so that's the point of this. Take your Enneagram, myenneagramcoach.com. She's awesome. I've learned a ton. I took the private class where I took a deep dive into myself, but I've learned so much more about my kids and my husband. So it was important for me to know me so I know how to respond to them. So like we talked about before, Sophie's a 4. And so Sophie's personality is that she's going to be artistic and introverted, and that she's not going to show a lot of super excitement. Her personality is not like mine. And because I didn't understand it, I used to try to make her like me, like she talked about. Once I understood that it's okay if Sophie looks kind of sad, she's not sad, and I don't have to put myself into that feeling. Okay, I can let her be her. I've learned that my husband is a 9 on the Enneagram. He's a peacemaker. He desires to create peace in the environments he's in. And so he's really good at listening and encouraging and being around. And that was really important to know. And Sidney's an 8 on the Enneagram. She's a challenger. And so the way that shows up in her life is that she's able to help other people. She's usually an advocate. So she even has a job where she works as an advocate. And that personality trait can show up kind of aggressive. I'm sorry for the in and out. My husband's leaving and going and coming and going. If you're hearing all the background noise, but she's going to show up. And we used to think that was a weakness because it's not like me. I'm not a challenger. I don't take sides. I actually am the opposite of a side taker. I'm a figure 8, or even in my life, you guys. I can see both sides. That's a gift God gave me, is that I don't have to take a side. I don't have to take a stand. My goal is to understand you. And if I do, I'm always going to be on the side of the human, no matter where you're at. I don't have to make my agenda your agenda. But Sidney, she's a social worker. Her heart is to advocate for those who don't have an advocate. And that's part of her personality that I used to think was a weakness. It's a gift. And so when we learn to understand, and my Sadie James, she's a 4, and 4s don't always fit in. But if you're a 4 who desires to fit in, that's really hard because you want to stand out, but you want to fit in. And that really takes a deep level of knowing yourself. And so this week, I just want to encourage you maybe to look into some of these tests, either the Strength Finder, Gallup test 2.0. If you're a Christian, maybe your spiritual gifting test. That's kind of fun. I think it shows up exactly the same as in your Enneagram or your Strength Finders. They just kind of give you a different lens in which to apply it. I don't think we need to apply our gifts at church. I think if your church is only trying to get you to do things at church, they're missing the point, because most of us don't live our lives at church. We live our lives in the world, and we need to be able to use our gifts in the world. And God didn't want us to just love the people that are like us. The Bible actually says, who cares about those who can love those who love them? What about loving your enemy or those who are unlovable? That's the call, folks. And so that's what I want for us today, is maybe we widen our lens. So we take a broader look at ourselves, each other, and especially your families. Let's work to heal our families, to see our kids a little bit better, to slow down and not put our expectations of ourselves on them. And if you keep showing up angry and with a bunch of junk, you need to do the work. You're responsible for healing your own stuff, not your parents, not your mean kooky cousin, none of that. You do the work. And forgiveness releases us to the next level. And so, just as Sidney's college professor said, I don't even know you, but I see you. I really do. At the end of the day, we really all want to know that we are good enough. And you really are. Even if you suck right now, you're good enough because I believe that you have in you the ability to change. And if you keep trying to change and make yourself a different person, like a totally different personality, that's a problem. Remember, we talked about that last week with Sophie, someone handing you the bag of what they think you should be. That's a bunch of BS. You need to get in tune with yourself so that you can show up as your authentic self. And then, only then, can you actually be transformed into who God wants you to be. But if you keep thinking that you need to be a different body part, you're going to be messed up. Okay? So that's it for today. Take your test, find out a little bit more about yourself, give yourself a little bit of grace, and God dang it, I'm so happy you're here. And as we always end, I hope you know that you're worthy of love, that you're beautiful, that if you don't feel okay, you'll know that you are going to be okay, that you are just absolutely where you're supposed to be, and that your hair looks great. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this, please share it, subscribe, and do all the god dang things. I guess this is where I ask you to subscribe to my channel, to follow me on social, and to listen wherever podcasts can be found. And join me every Tuesday at 2 as we unpack how to heal your hair, your heart, and your happiness.